Effective tips from psychologists.
Have you ever noticed how differently people assess their strengths and abilities? Having equal initial data, the level of income, received education, features of appearance? One is confident in his superiority, while the other considers himself a nobody. Why does this happen and how can we improve our self-esteem? Self-esteem is a subjective indicator of how we see ourselves from the outside and how highly we evaluate our strengths and capabilities. Below we will discuss why people position themselves differently, what it depends on, and how best to form an objective opinion. To change the attitude towards ourselves, we first need to understand how it is formed and what it consists of. The formation of self-esteem. This is a long and dynamic process to which we are exposed throughout life. Its components are: 1. Upbringing is the basic program laid down in the personality by its parents. How they perceive their child, unique, talented, unique or ordinary, average. This information the baby absorbs at a subconscious level and does not criticize. After all, mom and dad are his whole world. 2. Opinion of others. When a child grows up, he or she enters a group. He or she already has the basics of self-esteem, but the judgment of other people can make significant adjustments, both upward and downward. Everyone is exposed to this factor throughout life. Personal judgment. Most have it formed already on the basis of the above two components, which a person more often takes as axiom or can revise. But it is much easier to take one's word for it than to make an effort. To reflect, to analyze, to change something. Ways to improve self-esteem. With ideas of who and when self-esteem is formed, let's figure out how to influence the vision of yourself. Clearly the process can be seen as a formula: self-esteem equals nurture plus opinion of others plus personal judgment. It follows that it is possible to increase the sum only by increasing the summons in this equality. Work with children's complexes. This is a rather time-consuming process that involves consulting a psychologist or independently performing psychological practices that will help one to return to early childhood and revise the programs that were laid down and formed. A critical and conscious reaction to the opinions of others, which are not often objective. Understanding that someone else's judgment cannot influence a person unless they want it themselves is the first step to developing a strong immunity to negative information coming from the outside. Forming a personal opinion is the most powerful tool that works only in conjunction with the above components. Below we will discuss how to form it objectively and try to increase it. Work on your self-esteem. Practicing psychologists offer a large number of practices that are aimed at helping people work on themselves and improve their self-esteem. There is not and cannot be one method that will work productively for everyone. This is due to the different perception abilities of the individual and their previous experiences. Consider a few tips. Accept your imperfection. Admitting to yourself that you are not perfect is the first step in moving forward. It is important to understand that everyone chooses his or her own benchmark. And often our ideal character has succeeded in one or more specific areas, but in the rest not succeeded at all. Often a person overestimates the level of personal requirements and suffers from complexes and lack of confidence in their abilities. Stop comparing yourself with other mythical characters. It makes sense to compare oneself now only with one's past. Thus it is possible to see a tendency of development or degradation. Not to try to achieve success in all spheres of life simultaneously. It is physically impossible. It's worth highlighting a few areas in which you want to succeed and actively work. Learn to think positively. Do not regard your failures as a loss, but only as a gained experience that will be useful to you in the future. Praise yourself often, albeit for minor but achievements. Work's great success diary, in which you will write every day his big and small victories. Do not waste time reprimanding their actions that you cannot change. Analyze them, draw conclusions and move on. Don't be afraid of rejections and losses. They happen to all. The main thing to adequately respond to them and continue to move in the intended direction. High or low self-esteem. Is high self-esteem good or bad? The phrase, "modesty adorns a man" is no longer relevant these days. If you cannot present yourself to prove to others and especially to yourself that much worth, then you will remain on the sidelines of life. Who will believe in you if you are unsure of your abilities? Working on self-esteem is a long process that will require a lot of willpower. But, agree, it's better to be confident in your personal uniqueness and unsurpassedness, and to have an inflated self-esteem, than to feel like a nobody. Look at the successful people of this world, most of them proudly and confidently go through life, though they cannot boast of innate talents, outstanding external data or a high level of IQ. Disbelief in themselves and low self-esteem is transmitted to others who read this message subconsciously and assign exactly the price that you yourself have defined. Do you want to be cheap?